Bonjour, Kinamagi and Ireland edition of Cast, and welcome to this production of the Mind Math Network. Today's episode, Chapter 6, Lesson 13, Divide Decimals. Preference is for you to have the Lesson 13 packet, which was sent home on this past Friday. Begins on page 455. If you do not know where you placed your packet or didn't pick one back up, you should have at least a notebook page or 3 to be able to do this along with us so that you have a resource when we go to do the homework. If you need to pause the video to go get those materials, you're welcome to do such now, and I'll pause for 3 seconds. Okay, welcome back to those who had to take off and grab paper. Our essential question this chapter is, how is multiplying and dividing decimals similar to multiplying and dividing whole numbers? And we're nearing the end of the chapter. So by now, hopefully you're seeing that the algorithms are the same. It's just the movement of the decimal point throughout the problem. We get in my teaching point as we're now moving into that final step of where to move the decimal point in division problems. What are some ways to visually represent how to divide a decimal by another decimal? Well, you could use manipulatives, but I would also say you could use the standard algorithm to view it here. And now we're going to choose one of these digits to find the quotient and the number. So I'm going to grab my algorithm annotation tool here, give myself a little more room. And let's pick the middle one, 0.4. I don't want to divide by a decimal. 12.56 divided by 0.4, not what I want to do. I'm going to have to do something. And one of the things in math is that quite often you're allowed to divide or multiply both sides of something in order to make things easier, especially if you're multiplying or dividing by 10. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply 0.4 by 10 and 12.56 by 10. That allows me to move my decimal place here. So now I have a 4, and it's going to go one spot over here. If I move one spot to the right in my divisor, I have to move one spot to the right in my dividend. Then I'm going to write it above. And then after that, it is just standard division. When we do the quiz this week, or the chapter test, you'll be evaluated both on your ability to divide decimals and your standard division skills. So an awesome chance to start out the quarter with the 4 3s on your report card already. So now we're going to go ahead and go 125.6 by 4. And 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. And you remember our steps: divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, or compare, bring down. 12 minus 12 is 0. 0 is less than 4, so I bring it down and I have a 5. 4 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract, I get a 1. I bring down, I got a 6, and I have 16. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. Subtract, I get a 0. 31.4. And that makes sense because I could check my work. Times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. I put a 6. I regroup the 1. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. 4 times 3 is 12. There's one digit after the decimal point. So it's got to be one digit down the decimal point there. And it is the same number, 125.6. And if I had just written this as, well, I got to move the decimal points back, but that's the easiest way to go it. So we're really looking at the division here as being your key thing. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawing. This part is not yet in your text. You see that they did it in a weird way. I recommend mine. All right, so let's actually jump into the book now. And this will be page 455, an example basic. And there's a little hint at the top that's not available on this screen, but is available in your packet. It says, when dividing by decimals, change the divisor into a whole number. To do this, multiply both the divisor and the dividend by the same power of 10. Then divide as with whole numbers. So if you had one digit after the decimal point in your divisor, you multiply both by 10. If you had two digits, by 100. You just, whatever you need to do to get the decimal to the end of the divisor. So I have a problem here. Casey is 4.5 feet tall. Her brother Jerome is 6.75 feet. How many times taller? So we're going to have 6.75 divided by 4.5. So our steps are, first we had to multiply both sides by 10. So that moved it to 45. And that moved it from 6.75 to here to be 67.5. And then they drew their decimal up there, or point up there. Now we're ready to just go ahead and divide. 45 goes into 67 one time, because 45 times 2 is 90, and that's a lot bigger. We subtract, 7 minus 5 is 2, 6 minus 4 is 2. 22 is less than 45, so I'll bring down the 5. Now I have to decide how many times does 45 go into 25, or 225. I'm going to start at 5, because 45, 90 is 2, 180 would be 4, and that should work. I go to 5 times 5, 45 is 225. Subtract the 0. So she's going to be, Casey's going to, Jerome is going to be 1.5 times taller than Casey. So go ahead and write this in, and then I will bring us to the bottom part of that. Give you about 15 or 20 seconds on that part. And as always, when I say I'm going to go ahead and clear it, that gives you just about a second or two where you could pause the video and say, oh, I'm not ready. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my drawing. And I move forward, and you can see that we have what's same thing that we just wrote down. So we had the 1.5, which was our quotient. And you can check your work by taking the 4.5 times the 1.5. So your quotient times your divisor, and you get your dividend, 6.75. Go ahead and write that in, and then you'll turn to the top of 456 for example niche. Okay, let's move forward. We have example niche, which is 600ths divided by 1.5. First thing I need to do is multiply each, the divisor and the dividend by 10, because there's one digit after, and multiplying by 10 moves the decimal place one spot to the right. And if I do that out here, I have to do that in here. So this gives us 15 into 0.60. And you're thinking, but Mr. Ireland, that's such a tight number comparatively. And that's okay, because in the standard algorithm, it's not going to matter. So I say to myself first, will 15 go into 0? Gaween. It won't. So now I'll go, will 15 go into 6? That's still no. How about 15 into 60? Well, yeah, a clock, there's 60 minutes an hour and 4 divisions, yeah. So now I go ahead and I multiply from here, after I brought down the 0. 4 goes in 60, 50 times. And we end up with 0.04. should have been clear in explaining once. One of the options is you could say, okay, do the 0. I would have gone all the way over to the 60. They approached it slightly different. So go ahead and write that in. That is a very messy 6. I could check my work. 15 times 0.04. 15 times 4 is 60. But there are 2 digits after the decimal place. They go in 2 spots. 0.6. So we're good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear my drawing. See the answer there. Check your work like we talked about. So we're good. All right, let's do one more together, and then we will practice. What I'll ask you to do is, I'll give a few seconds for you to write in each one, and then move on. So I'm going to go 6.89 divided by 1.3. What do I need to multiply my divisor and my dividend by? You said 10, you're correct, because that'll move it 1 spot to the right. And we'll get 68.9 and 13. After that, we're into our regular division, which remember is divide, multiply, subtract, compare or check, and bring down. 13 does not go into 6. It will go into 68. And it will go in 5 times. That'll be my starting spot here. 5 times 3 is 15. Regroup. 5, this one is 65, so that works. I now subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. 3 is less than 13, so I bring down my 9, and I have 39. For whatever reason, my 13 times 3 I am actually pretty good at. So I know that it's going to be a 3. That's my divide step. 39 divided by 13. I multiply. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 1 is 3. I subtract. I have a 0. I compare. 0 is less than 13. There's nothing to bring down. My answer is 5.3. So as you go through this, your knowledge of where to put the decimal point is the key detail. Everything else is standard. Go ahead and make sure that's written in. I'll give you a few seconds to do that before I move forward. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawing. Close that up. The talk math coming up here. When finding 808 thousandths by 4/10, by what number should you multiply the divisor? By 10. Because there's 1 digit after the decimal place. So you multiply by 10, that moves it 1 spot to the right, so we get a 4. And you would multiply this by 10 as well, because you have to do it to both sides. And you'd end up with 8.08 divided by 4. All right, I'm going to have you do a couple. I'd like you to do numbers 2 and 3. You'll pause the video, you'll do both of these problems. We'll come back and we will do them together, or at least provide the answers. You may pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. 2.2 for number 2 and 550 for number 3. As the first ones, let's realize we're going to multiply both by 10. So I'm really going to get 3 into 6.6. Put it up there. 3 goes into 6 twice. And I'll subtract. I compare. I bring down. I get a 6. I know that's still going to be a 2. 2 times 3 is 6. We're good to go. Here I need to multiply both sides by 100. 1 and 2. 1 and, ooh, I'm going to have to annex a 0. So I'm going to really end up with 1650 divided by 3. Goes in here 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. I subtract, get a 1. 1's less than 3. I bring down, I get a 15. Get a 5. 5 times 3 is still 15. Subtract. I have 0 is less than 3. I bring down. 3 does not go into 0. 0 times 3 is 0. Subtract. We're good. 550 is our quotient. So notice, in this case, we had to move the decimal point 2 spots. So we also had to do it here, and that included annexing a 0 into our dividend. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawings. Let's see if you can get the answers to the next ones. I'm confident in you. And I would like you to do numbers 6 and 7. You may pause the video. We'll see you on the other side. All right, let's see how you did. 0.05. And that we have 14 into 0.7 or 0.7, which really then you're going to add a 0 in there. And over here, 95.55. So they get a little bit tougher. But if you're good at your standard algorithm, really you ended up having 382 divided by 4. 382.2 divided by 4. This one you ended up with 0.7 divided by 14. All right, on the homework today, we're going to follow with the same skills, whether it be a story problem or regular. I do recommend that you write problems like 1 and 3, more like number 2. If you're using scrap paper, that would be a good idea. You could attach it. Well, there are a couple of ways to submit the assignment. One way is to put your name on the top of both sides, take a picture or scan it and email it to me at mireland@psychchipschool.net, or text it to me at 989-750-1640. If you have a piece of scrap paper that you use, it would be great if you would attach that as well. Or you can use the Google form within the classroom. And I would still recommend doing it on paper and then just typing the answers in. There will be no remainders as we're doing the decimals now. If you have any questions, please join us at office hours to ask or seek further assistance. Or the best place to get this information is during our live class sessions. I hope you all have a Minal Gijigat. Minwa Bamapi.